Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar brought to you by TechStrong and Commodore. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of TechStrong Learning. We have an exciting presentation ahead of us, but first I have a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. First, today's session is being recorded. So if you miss any of our session or you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session today. If you have any questions for our speakers, we want you to submit those to the Q&A tab on the right side of the screen. And for any additional comments or you want to engage with your fellow audience members, we want you to use the chat tab. Finally, at the conclusion of our webinar, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around to see if you're one of our winners. I'll also mention that we do have the slides available for download under the Handouts tab, which is also on the right side of your screen. So our webinar topic today is how Bitso empowers its devs to troubleshoot Kubernetes independently. And I'm joined today by Juan Jose Mejia, engineer lead at Bitso, and Oren Ninio, head of solution architects at Commodore. Oren, Juan, thank you both so much for being here with me today. Oren, do you want to take it away from here?
Thank you very much, Cody. So as you shared, my name is Oren. I'm head of solution architects at Commodore. A little about Commodore. We're a startup at the Kubernetes ecosystem. We help companies large and small make the transition to Kubernetes, as well as troubleshoot incidents inside their environment, anywhere from image pull backoffs to issues with their nodes or other resources. Juan?
Thank you, Cody, and thank you, Oren. I'm Juan Jose Mejia, as Cody mentioned. I'm engineering lead at Bitso. I'm running and leading a squad of engineers. And in Bitso, for you, if you don't know who Bitso is, I will make you a little review. This is a cryptocurrency exchange unicorn. It's actually the first unicorn of Latin America. We offer an access services for Latin American people so they can access fast and in a faster, reliable way to cryptocurrency world. And worth to mention that Bitso is the first cryptocurrency unicorn of Latin America, and this is like the top one.
So Juan, I'm sure you know there are a lot of challenges with growing and scaling and becoming a unicorn. Before we dive into those, can you tell us a bit about your current architecture and how things are set up in your environment?
Yeah, sure. Before going to the challenges, we're going to tackle a bit of, I think most of you are tech people, the developers, and want to know, I would like to say, I would like you to picture, like, where is the field that we are landing right now? Where is the ground that we are sitting? Okay. So, first, as many of you may know, Bitso, it's a unicorn, right? It's Latin America unicorn. For the last years, it was like a startup, right? And as every startup has a lot of technical challenges, and we are like in this land of migrating to a medium-sized, from a startup to a medium-sized company, okay? So in this case, we have a lot of, in the technical part, in the engineering side, we have a lot of challenges, and I would like to see or to show you the mountains where we are right now. Okay, one of them is that we have monolith services that lives on Kubernetes right now, and we are migrating and decoupling them into microservices. Okay, another mountain we have is we have a lot of databases, and we need to make them more reliable as we're growing as a company. And we are, for example, making them having replicas, being unclustered them, so they can be more reliable and have more uptime. And the another one, another mountain we're going through, is going from synchronous architecture to asynchronous. For example, if you have an API and you receive a request for requesting a bunch of data, maybe this API is consulting many other APIs from your services, and these kind of things, we need to scale that part, and we're going to a synchronous architecture.
So Juan, I'm sure you have more challenges. Like you mentioned, you're becoming a unicorn. You're probably recruiting a lot of people. You're probably growing to additional areas. One of the things that you haven't mentioned, you're a fully remote company as well. How is
Yes.
that? What is that like?
Yeah, it's being a fully remote company. It's at the first it's hard when you don't know each other, and mostly engineers we don't socialize a lot, or sometimes someone, but sometimes it's hard, and you need to get a really great culture, and Bitso has offered a lot of that, and a lot of participations from our engineering side also. You always have help every time. So yeah.
So the simple things in life, like grabbing a cup of coffee and going over to your colleague, is not something that's possible.
Yeah, actually, we have this program called Coffee Buddies. All the Bitsonauts that we call Bitsonauts to our Bitso members will know about this, and you arrange this. We have a Slack bot that arrange you a meeting with a random person, and you have a 30-minute coffee. It's like a great way to connect.
That sounds really awesome. So let's talk a bit about the challenges that you're having around implementing Kubernetes.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's something a lot of people are having now.
I want to make a little summary of our challenges. We have three challenges. First is one about the tools we were using. Okay. The second one is about the processes we had with engineering process. And the last one is the lack of knowledge and the knowledge gap we got about. You mentioned we are a really company growing every day. So that's it. Let's go. The first challenge is about the tools we were using. As I mentioned you way before, many years ago, Bitso has like 8 years since it began. So many years ago, services were running on virtual machines, on a custom provider, not a known provider. So every solution we had, it was like a standalone one, okay? Mm-hmm. Another challenge we had about the tools is that, for example, when you are a startup and you have 20 developers, okay, maybe it's easy to access logs because you don't have enough traffic from users and transactions. And yeah, developers access these logs via kube control in this case. So when you have, as I mentioned, when you have 20 developers, it's okay, there's no problem. But when you scale from, 20 developers to 100 developers, it's like you need more ways to access all services, And another challenge is that we had this Jenkins, for example, Jenkins CI for pipelines and deployments. But at the end, when we are a lot of people running to time to market, this adds an extra effort, extra manual effort. Okay, so it was a challenge and a part of our development process. And the other hand, we had applications like firewalls, VPNs, and all infrastructure programs that were also standalone, installed on these virtual machines. And this represents like a problem for our infrastructure team because they had to maintain it, they had to install it again, and when something goes down, they had to be so aware. Okay.
So Juan, this challenge really makes sense because when you're a startup, you mentioned that you were a startup for quite some time. Your main focus is to increase your velocity as much as possible. So you don't put your mind into creating the most robust solution, but rather find the best way to address whatever issue you're having at the moment. If it's a custom provider for your VMs to answer your solution right now, or standalone VPNs for any specific service that you want to connect with, because you don't have to look at the big picture right now. You want to get the next feature out to the market. You want to develop and to push the next PR.
Yes, that's it. That's like that's why I love all the stages that a company has, and I had the lack of having this experience in other companies, and see them growing. And it's like every stage that a company has its own problems, has its own growing problems also, and challenges. And yeah, that's it. When you're a small size company, a startup, you have this problem. You have to reach the time to market so you can get your investments and to grow to the next level. So yeah, we are like this company growing into a medium-sized company, but not also focusing on the growing to medium-sized company. We are focusing on going a large company, on the future. We don't want to do an effort and then redo it all again.
Yeah, so Bitso is right now in explosion. You're growing, you're recruiting more people. I'm sure you're recruiting many developers every week to join your team, to join your squad, to join your tribe. I'm sure there are a lot of challenges in the process, as you mentioned, between the different teams, arranging and coordinating. Can you tell us a bit about those challenges?
Yeah, and most of developers, also my experience, I'm also a developer, developer background. We really like about processes. I face a lot of developers that are always proposing, like, I don't know, let's get a Git flow, let's get how to do the definition of done, and all the stuff that are really great to hear from developers, because at the end of the day, it's the way they're going to work, it's the way they're going to fail, it's the way they're going to succeed, So developers are really interested on process. So in this case, our processes were not relevant because we were facing, as you mentioned, a large growing of people. If I can tell you, we had the last year, like average, like 20 engineers per month.
Wow.
So we had a really great growth. And it was hard also from our side because this growing comes with friction.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things that happened was that when a developer wants to put code on development or staging environment, they needed to do it manually,
Mm-hmm.
So that was a challenge we had on our process. So we started figuring out with all senior developers how to work on that. Another challenge we had on the process, it was when we needed to create some resources, services, pods, or whatever, resource of AWS, we needed to, it was hard, because not all are used to our new infrastructure as a code we implemented. Also, as I mentioned, the process were changing every time. And for example, I had a process to create a new resource last month, and the next month is like different, and it was hard in this part because we are ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
And another challenge we had, it was the pull request interaction. As I mentioned, we had some of monolithical services, and this implies sharing code, sharing responsibilities with other teams. And this is like having many hands in one soap, sometimes. So these kind of challenges are hard because it goes with how we interact with other teams when my pull request is put is uploaded, and then you got some reviews, and you have to put in context everyone on it and on other teams that are not in context, or your business, your logic, your agreements. So this was
everyone just wants the best code to be pushed, and once you see a pull request that's coming out, everyone wants to see how you can refine it, how you can make it better.
Yeah.
How it interacts with my code that I'm going to push not right now, but maybe the code that I'm going to push next week to make it ready for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of trade-off in this interaction, and you have to wait for a comment, for an approval, and then they have to wait for your response, and so this was like,
and that just doesn't make sense. You want, like you said before, you want to get to market as fast as possible. You want to deliver. You want to go.
Exactly. That's one of the things that last a lot in our side. But also we have like challenges more short or more tiny. Like, for example, logging into the AWS, you had to log into your authentication provider, then into AWS, then your client, or there were like tiny processes that also take you a lot of time. We like this idea of not only focusing on the big picture, on the big problems, but also focusing on improving on tiny stuff.
So essentially improving the quality of life of the developer as well. So not only that he developed a good product, but that he enjoys the process that he's doing it.
Totally. That's it. That's what we as Bitso want to offer, a great developer experience, so we can reach our goals and also be happy with what we do.
Absolutely. I'm sure that, connecting to your cluster and having a timeout every few minutes and having to log in again, I can really relate to that frustration.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the last challenge we have is that we notice a lack of expertise on Kubernetes on our developers. We have a really tiny amount of developers that had a lot of experience, on Kubernetes and on infrastructure. But as I always mention, we are like, or most of tech companies are product-oriented companies. We want developers that are focused on the business logic, that can build the complex algorithms for reaching our goals, for fixing our core value of our business, and they are focused on the users, and see the users' needs. So these kind of things were like of dealing with Kubernetes. It was sometimes was hard because we had to live with Kubernetes. There is no way to escape from them. The problem is how we deal with them,
Was the challenge mainly with the existing developers who weren't familiar with Kubernetes, or with new people that joined the company who were not familiar with this infrastructure? Where did you see that challenge come from?
In first place, there were developers that were used to that, but in other hand, they had to know how all the process was implemented, how all the infrastructure was planned. It was also hard for them, for those who know Kubernetes. Obviously, we don't have access to production, so this makes a lot of extra effort, as every company has. For those who don't know Kubernetes so well, it happens to me, it happens a lot of developers. You can be used to, Dockerization and other orchestrators or other stuff. But if you don't have an idea of Kubernetes, you have to go and deep dive on learning kube control, learning how to access them. Those kind of things were like making last a lot our task, because you have made a task, you have made to know first how to work with your tools.
And essentially what you're doing is, you're bringing on new developers, and there's this new infrastructure that they're not familiar with. At the end of the day, you brought them to develop your solution. You want them to develop the best platform there is, and you don't want to invest the time necessarily in them learning the new infrastructure.
Exactly.
And investing their time in becoming a infrastructure engineer, but rather to continue their path as a software developer.
That's why we have this part of site reliability engineers or DevOps engineers. That's why they are for. So we need, in this case, or most of our developers are like product-oriented developers.
So you spoke about really interesting challenges that I'm sure every company that is going through a growth phase like yourself is currently facing. Transitioning from the architecture and infrastructure that served them when they were growing up, in a way, the best infrastructure that they needed and had for the time, and transitioning to something that is more mature, more enterprise ready, for a much larger company. You spoke about the internal processes and how you had to graduate from one team to a large organization, as well as the challenges in learning. I'm really interested in hearing how you tackle these issues.
Here we go. As I mentioned we had this first challenge. It was about the tools we have. Mm-hmm. We have to migrate from virtual machines on a custom provider to AWS. It was one of the first things we did. And then we migrated also to Kubernetes, all of our infrastructure. So it was a really huge step, but it was almost on the beginning of the company. Mm-hmm. So it was a really long time ago. And then another thing we did is we replaced it, in this case, Jenkins CI for Circle CI. So we can have a full automated way. For example, in this case, we can have a continuous integration and delivery that we didn't have before. So the only thing you do is to push your changes, and then you have all your flow going automated, where you have notifications. So that's really great.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. Other thing that we did is that's why we are here with you, is we implemented Commodore. This was a really great acquisition. You helped us to troubleshoot a lot of incidents and to reduce the MTTR, and the solution and the visibility of health statuses and the visibility of events, and also the gap between a deployment and another, and what changed, and this helped us a lot. This was really great because we had many tools to troubleshoot in just one place.
So how did Commodore really help you with newer engineers, with people who are less familiar with Kubernetes?
Yeah, in this case, worked like a facade, between developers and the Kubernetes and all the stuff, because we don't have to start, as I mentioned a lot of tasks we had on the day-to-day, from going on kube control and going to the logs, going to kube control and doing a describe on a pod, on many stuff that you need. You just have to go with your single sign-on and you are in. That was really great, a really great task.
Awesome.
Yeah, another solution we implemented is we're using Splunk for accessing our logs. And I would like to see it this way, because it may confuse. You can see logs on Commodore, you can see logs on tools like Splunk or Kibana. But we use Commodore, for example. I personally use Commodore logs from Commodore, mostly when I am, deploying a new service, troubleshooting a deployment, or creating a new service, and I want to know if the pod is already healthy and see what are the first log, if the service goes started well, okay? So that's why I use Commodore's logs from Commodore. But if I need to troubleshoot a specific transaction, that has an issue, for something more detailed, I go to Splunk. So that's the way we are using right now.
So I can see there's a question from Amanda from Manchester. If Commodore is integrated together with Splunk, so Amanda, on that, just Commodore is able to integrate together with Splunk in order to give you access to your historical logs. So you can see events, historical events within Commodore, and then direct yourself from the event in Commodore, from the incident there, to the historical logs in Splunk, and see exactly, like Juan mentioned, a specific transaction that went through, or a deep dive investigation into the incident in Splunk historically as well. So Juan, one of the challenges that you mentioned were the procedural changes, challenges between people, and being a fully remote company, I'm sure that's a first challenge there is, but growing significantly, adding 20 developers per month, how you're talking about culture. How did you handle that?
Yeah, first of all, one of the great things I had to mention on Bitso is culture. I've never seen a great and visible and real culture of collaboration. Your voice can be heard, and this is really sometimes it's hard to find in a company. And that, I think, that base allowed us to make a lot of improvements. If for example, I proposed some things on public channels, and it was like, hey, I like the idea, let's go to do it. And it was like, okay. I wasn't expecting to see that, but yeah, let's do it. This is really nice. And most of solutions comes from developers itself. That's great. And one of them, it was like they implemented a bot. This effort was done by DevOps, and if there is someone from DevOps in the webinar, I would like to thank them, because
that's for everyone from DevOps worldwide for the great work you're doing everywhere.
Yeah. See, they do our tools for us, So they implemented a bot, and our manual processes of merging and going pipelines and going to a production on the deployments, they were done automatically by a bot, where you can consult the bot and ask questions to that bot. You can ask for commands. You just run a command to the bot and it just deploys stuff and do merges, and it's really nice.
So and that is what was done manually before, and everyone had to do it manually until then.
Yeah, that's the idea, to go in from manual stuff or that things that last a lot to go into automatic.
Yeah, basically, if you do it more than twice, you should automate it.
Yeah, exactly. If you do more than twice in 2 minutes, you should automate it. Another one we did on our process part is to set up sync meetings with our DevOps teams. So, for example, as I mentioned, we have this issue when you have to request a new resource. For example, a few months ago, we started using messaging architectures, like Kafka or queues or something like that. And those are kind of things that were pretty new to our infrastructure, And there is a lot of resources that are new and we want to integrate. There are teams that want to use new tools, or new applications. So in this case, we set up some meetings that are doing frequently, like weekly or bi-weekly with DevOps, so we can plan with them and we can say, hey, the next month or the next queue, we're going to need this resource. Please be prepared. So as you know, not all the processes are already planned because we are, as I mentioned, a startup growing to a medium-sized company. Not all the processes are formalized. We are struggling also with a lot of this, informal stuff, informal processes. So the first thing we have to do is just plan it, start planning, start the conversation. And that's what is this effort. Another one thing that we did about the PRs interaction, that lasts a lot. And I have measured in my team, we have a lot of PRs and efforts and user stories, we have to give to the user that lasted more like 2 or 3 sprints. And it was really crazy, we all have this kind of stuff, but the problem on that we want to focus is, hey, how we reduce this gap, And what we did, we
need to deliver, development velocity.
Yeah, and also this has a lot of impact. The users has no features. The product cannot reach the goals. The developers get frustrated, because your feature is not going to production.
So what do you do?
Yeah, and what we do is to on this part was to make agreements on a team, and before coding, for example, I have my task, I have my team. Before I code, I have an agreement with my team. Hey, how we're going to solve this? We're going to use this tool, this framework, this strategy, this pattern, or whatever, and we all agree on that before. So when I code my solution and I send the PR, there is no interaction needed because we all agree. Hey, this is what we thought. This is good. I recommended this way before he goes to code. So the pre-interaction was reduced mostly to 0. Just like most of them of the last PR I got is like, okay, this is it. Okay, approved. There is no such interaction, and we reduced that. Happily, we have a lot of user stories completed, like coding, testing in environments, and going to production in the same sprint. So this is really great.
So basically, once you understand, you create a baseline of understanding between you and your peers, you're ready to go and start pushing.
Yes, that's it. And we are all happy because we all contributed as a team. At the end of the day, that's what most leaders want and what most organizations want. This is a team effort, not a solo effort,
Absolutely.
Yeah, that we have that in mind. And also about the tiny stuff that we implemented is like, instead of using AWS CLI for a login to AWS, that obviously take us a lot of time, a lot of interaction. We have to, set up your 2-factor authentication and other stuff and grab your phone. And then we use the SAML to AWS tool that it was really, really nice because it has also integrated AWS CLI, all the keep control, had all the stuff in one program. So it was really nice. It's a command line also. But yeah, we also implemented these kind of things.
Awesome. So, let's go back and tell us about how you address the knowledge gap that people had when joining the company or people who are already in.
Yeah, about the knowledge gap, it was, as I mentioned, we had like 20 engineers per month. In my team, we have like, I don't know, 2 or 3 engineers, and it's a lot also for a team, we saw sometimes, I don't know, if you have to deal with this service, go to talk with, you always have reference, go to talk with that guy. And when they've been talking, we have the 3 engineers asking on DM of the same guy. And it was like, we saw this situation and saw like they are interacting a lot, but taking a lot of time of the senior engineer. And it's like, okay, let's do something. And we ideated like these sessions. We have weekly sessions where we can share knowledge. We also open the mic to everyone. We created like a safe space for engineer where they can share their knowledge. For example, we started like doing the last task you did on your sprint. You can share it and share how you solve it, and then you can have a lot of interaction, for engineers, because it could happen. Hey, I could do it better, and yeah, all suggestions are appreciated. We have a really great space there, Also, another thing we were open to do is to open the mic to newcomers, because we love diversity in Bitso, and that is really nice. The most diversity we have, when it's controlled on our teams, is greater because new people has a lot of background, a lot of experience, a lot of things to bring on. We open the mic to newcomers to say, hey, you know a lot of this framework, you are certified on that other framework. Just help us and tell us how to use it better, And it was really nice in this case. And we put topics like how to troubleshoot on Kubernetes, how to troubleshoot incidents, how to troubleshoot these kind of services. And also we have the pleasure to have you, Oren, for the audience, on one of these sessions. So he could tell us some of Commodore, right?
Yeah, it was really great to join into your company meeting to share about Commodore, how to troubleshoot issues in Kubernetes, how to use Commodore more effectively, and also hear a really active session of people asking all sorts of really insightful questions, sharing things that they're looking to see in the product, resources that they want to have added, unique ways to use the Commodore events timeline, and really getting all that feedback and questions from such a lively group.
Yeah, in that going back on that session that you were with us, I was like measuring like 80% of our engineers on my team, at least, were like they don't know Commodore because it was recently installed in our applications. So just a month later, I was really happy because all engineers were using Commodore to troubleshoot, and they were, okay, I'm going this easier than before. So we are looking for this kind of initiatives, And also this initiative of knowledge transfer was adopted also for the company. Other teams were doing it also. So I think you participated also in a whole company meeting for Commodore, right?
Yeah, so Neve from my team had the pleasure to join the full company and share the knowledge about Commodore for about, I think it was in 2 groups to over 200 engineers, which are now using Commodore, logging in, troubleshooting issues in Kubernetes, seeing the status of their deployments when they're coming through, and it was really an active and lively session.
Yeah, that's really great about Bitso. We take initiative, they grow, and we can make life of engineers easier.
And I'm sure that these learning sessions are really helpful for junior software developers who are joining Bitso and now learning how to improve their development, but also for senior developers who are joining.
Yes.
Both to learn company culture, to learn about technologies that they might not be familiar with, or maybe even share from technologies that they're familiar with, or frameworks that they're familiar with, to people in the company on how the best way to use them.
Yeah, totally. In that part, we are all equal. We are all learning. We cannot be senior in every technology we have. So that's really great to know that we have a space for learning.
Absolutely. So we spoke a bit about new technologies that you implemented, new tools, your transition to AWS, how you use Commodore to troubleshoot issues in Kubernetes. We spoke about processes and new processes that you implemented while you exploded from a startup to a unicorn and growing your team.
Yes.
And about the learning session. Is there anything more that you want to share on the process?
Yeah, about the process, it was really nice, as I mentioned. Yeah, this is worth to mention that you have a space for speak. Your voice can be heard. The processes are always changing. You have to deal sometimes with, the sprint goals, the interaction with other teams, with newcomers, and to train them. With the process that are changing, but having a really supportive team and giving this culture of supportive is really nice. It's the culture is like, as I mentioned, the basis of it, because happened to me yesterday. I have a teammate that did appear for me because I wasn't close to my computer, and it was really nice. I love this, but it goes all about the culture. So to be available, to be open with all of us, and you can implement this kind of solution we did. And I love to share this with you because this may work for someone, as a worker for us.
So I'm sure that a lot of our listeners right now are going through many things that you have gone through in the process of growing the company, growing inside the company, and growing your team, as well as challenges with Kubernetes, and might have questions for us. I see that there are some questions already coming in, and I think this could be a really good opportunity for us to take some questions from the crowd. So if you have any questions, please feel free to share, and we'll start taking them.
Awesome. So while we wait on some more questions to come in, we will address the ones we've already received. So here's the first one. Does Bitso use a monitoring tool like Dynatrace, New Relic, Datadog, Prometheus, or any others?
Yeah, and on the part of monitoring, you can use a lot of tools, and those tools are kind of different. Yeah, those one actually are pretty similar, but this like the observability. They tend to go solve the observability. But yeah, we use in this case Datadog for the observability. In this case, something I learned. I like to share learnings in this case because that's why we created the transfer sessions. I learned, for example, in this case, that Prometheus is like calling every service and getting that information in the database. But the kind of services like Datadog use your services go and hit the Datadog service. So in this case, we implemented Datadog. Just with a few configuration. I think we have 2 configurations to do in our service. You can expose your metrics over there and use dashboard and add some columns or dimensions to our metrics, so you can make it visible what is really going on your business logic or your services.
So we also have an integration that we have between Datadog and Commodore. Juan, do you want to share a bit about how you use Datadog and Commodore together?
Yeah, mostly. In this part, I really like to use Commodore for, like, as I mentioned with Splunk, for a quick overview of the things. When I need something that I have this tool, this pen, right, and or my cell phone to make a call. Commodore is like that, or all the tools should be like that. I have a tool and I want to take it with no friction, with no so much interaction. I just want to take it from my table, And Commodore complies that way in my case. If I want to see a quick status, a quick log, or how's the health status, or those kind of stuff. On the other hand, I use Datadog for a more complex or more doing more complex analysis. I use Datadog. For example, I have transactions, and the transactions fail or are completed. I want to publish that business logic, on Datadog. So I did my custom metrics because for pod status, I don't know, Java memory or all those kind of stuff, there are a lot of things that are already done. You have actuator and a lot of technologies that are already done that already monitor the memory and stuff. So I do not have to work on that. I need to work on business, on how many acceptance rate I have on my transactions, what are the sources of the transactions, all that stuff. I use Datadog for that kind of things.
So our next question reads, what is your solution for reverting complex DB changes?
Oh, that depends on where are you putting that complex DB changes, But most of cases, I see, like if you're doing on development or staging or production, But mostly of things, our solution is to make the complex DB changes like isolated from the real solution, or trying to, if I do a complex DB change, I don't try to modify the existence one, I won't try to both live together, So if something happens, I can delete this change of the new database structure, for example, and the old one can be on a way that can be rolled back, That's kind of the way of going safety.
Thank you for sharing, Juan.
Awesome. So this next question reads, I recently had a cron job issue that took a lot of time to troubleshoot. What is your solution for tracking and troubleshooting cron jobs?
If I'm not mistaken, I haven't worked with cron jobs on Commodore, but you have support for that, right?
Yes. So we recently launched our support for jobs and cron jobs. And what we do is we track all the jobs, how much time they take. We can save their information historically, so you're able to see the provenance for every job that is running. You can look at the logs even after the job has been completed. You can see what's the average time that a job usually takes. And then when it takes longer, you can see that in Commodore as well. And one nice thing as well is that you're able to see on one timeline all of the different occurrences and jobs that are happening. So if you have jobs that depend on one another, you can see the dependency between those jobs on the timeline and how they interact with one another, as well as services that might be required for the job to be completed. So if your job is depending on one of the services and that service is down and your job fails, you can correlate between the job failure and the service that it was dependent on.
Would love to do that because, the last time I had to deal with cron jobs, it was like more than 6 months ago. And I had to do the troubleshoot via kube control. And it was like, okay, I have to map this name of cron job with this one. Now the cron job is dead. And it was really hard, And I think in this part with Commodore, we will have a better time next time. Okay.
So can you give an example of an issue that was discussed in the weekly knowledge sharing session and the lessons that you as a company took from that session?
Yeah, we have one that was about, actually it was about Datadog and metrics, and we explained it, and I took that session, explained how from our services you have to implement it, how the best practices of creating metrics, because creating metrics from your service and your logic is really easy. You just have to add one line of code and that's it. The metric is pushed. But sometimes you don't have you can see, I don't know, the counting of an event, like and just that, But metrics are really insightful, are really great because you can add the dimension or tags to every metric, and you can do a lot of crazy stuff and cross information between them. I really like that one because we learned from that session that there was a lot of interaction on developers, and they were really happy after the session because they were like, "Oh my God, I can do all of that, those kind of things. I can do, or I were doing it wrongly." I learned that this is really useful. This is really useful for teams, for companies, and doing not only sessions that you are always talking, like we are doing right now. We need sessions and where developers are interacting. They are the main sponsors of the sessions. If I bring a topic to a session, I noticed that, right? We have different sessions, and I noted that the more interaction, the place where we have more interaction, where when we open the mic to the developers. For example, if I am bringing one topic, I will arrange the meeting or prepare the meeting in a way that they are more interested and they are more participating, and making more questions than me speaking, So that's a learning I took, and we took as a team from these sessions, that it is really worth to share.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So one huddle with working with Kubernetes is defining the amount of compute power you need on a service running on a cluster. Speaking of CPU and memory limits, how do you tell what is enough, and what metrics do you use to configure these figures?
Okay. When it's enough, sometimes it's about the technology you are using, and sometimes it's about how much power you have on your host, on your host machine. You have to define, and how we define how many is enough. It's a really hard question for me because I'm not come from infrastructure part, but this kind of things we used to tackle as a team with the infrastructure team, with the solutions architect team. So that's how I tend to solve this stuff, working together. But yeah, usually I have to be honest with you. Most companies, when are on a startup side or startup perspective, we focus much more on delivering. And when we come to this medium-sized company that we are going, then we start to measure how many resources we are tackling. So probably these kind of things, at least in my opinion, I'm not giving so much focus. I know there are teams that are really focused on that are really saving resources, but I prefer to have more resources in my services and to be prepared if something grows. But I think mostly in Bitso we are started measuring a lot of these things because they are going to more resources we got, more money we got. So I think that's why we have Commodore to measure how our memory is using, and we have all the metrics. But yeah, the idea I think in this part is to measure. Once we can measure, we can take decisions.
So I can also share with you, we're working with a lot of companies who are doing the transition now with Kubernetes. And one of the approaches that our customers took is to give developers on their development clusters, when they're just working on their application, a very, very low amount of resources. So the developers that are working to create the solution need to really work with a very lean pod that they're running in, with very low limits. And that way, they're really working hard to optimize their application as much as possible. And they might be experiencing out of memories or other, reaching the CPU limit.
They can iterate and
they can iterate more and more. And once they have that issue, they'll be notified by Commodore for the out of memory. Why exactly did it happen? What was the pod's life cycle when it until it reached the limit, so they can understand better how to optimize their own application. And then when they go out to production, they get a slightly higher limit in case they need to, handle a higher load or scale or things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting because we have like these two perspectives, like the going on the minimal enough so you can improve from there, and I started like saving a lot of money from the beginning, or maybe being more conservative and say, I'm going to take, 1 gigabit of memory. And it's like, okay, but okay, depending on the size of the service, or the hub, But yeah, we have a lot of different perspectives that are really great because they both work, and in one time you have to start saving, and that's great.
I think they even went down to giving like a bare minimum of like 200 megabits for a service. So just to really reduce it to the minimum and really make really challenge the developers to create really optimized applications.
Yeah, that's it. I mentioned you 1 gigabit because sometimes we have monolithic services or big services that have a lot of responsibilities, and there are a lot of resources, and that may be like not a standard, but sometimes it happens.
So that's an excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it looks like we are on to our last question. So if anyone in the audience has any last-second questions they'd like to send in, now is your last call. So this last question reads, when you mentioned switching to AWS VPN, was this only site-to-site, or are you using the AWS VPN client?
In this part, also have to be honest, I'm not an expert on AWS. But yeah, the idea is to, as I mentioned, we have standalone VPNs applications running on our servers, and when we migrated to AWS, the idea was to increase the reliability, and to increase the uptime and have redundancy of VPNs. If something goes down, to take another program to take the work. So in this case, I can answer the question. That is part from our infrastructure team, that they have all the details from that.
So I would believe that the AWS VPN client is used if you're connecting from your local machine. Whereas since you're a fully remote company, I would doubt that you're using a site-to-site, since you don't have a site that you're based from.
Yeah, I guess, but yeah, we're using the solution from AWS. That's the thing.
Yeah, so with VPN, you really need to understand, what is the type of the solution that you want to create. If you are connecting from your personal computer, you'll be using the AWS VPN client. And if you want to connect from your office, for example, to bridge it to the environment that you're working with AWS, you'll probably be leveraging the AWS site-to-site.
Okay, I think I misunderstood the question, or maybe we got misunderstood. The question was misunderstood. Because when I was talking about VPNs, other stuff, I was talking about B2B VPNs, like business VPNs with other providers and the stuff. That's what our focus, because we have this kind of security when connecting to some providers, and that's why I was mentioning about that. And about the VPN for our company, that's another thing that is part of the IT team. But I'm not sure if they're using behind of the client we have. I'm not sure if they're using AWS VPN. I guess so. Yeah, because this is a matter of cybersecurity stuff of the company.
That will remain private.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, that seems to be all the questions that we've received today. So before we wrap things up, I'm going to let you guys have the floor in case there's anything you want to let the audience know before we officially conclude.
Oren?
Thank you, Juan. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I was Oren from Commodore. We help companies scale together with Kubernetes and troubleshoot incidents, helping troubleshooting incidents with Kubernetes. We provide a full Kubernetes troubleshooting platform that helps you analyze and understand what is happening in your Kubernetes cluster, track events over time, and make Kubernetes troubleshooting more effectively. We're also leveraging Kubernetes workflows that help you troubleshoot incidents that are happening right now by analyzing what are the issues and what are the best practices to apply in order to resolve those.
Awesome. Yeah, by my side, really thankful for all the people participating. Really love the question and interaction we have in the chat, in the QA also. And thank you, Oren. Thank you, Cody. As I mentioned, I am Juan Jose Mejia. I am leading right now a team on Bitso. Bitso, we are making, like, our mission is like making crypto useful so people can engage from everywhere, principally in our neighborhood, Latin America. So people can have cryptocurrency, can exchange, can send to other countries, and can do a lot of stuff with that. And I'm really here in Bitso. I really find my leadership role. I started my leadership role here. I found out that I really love to help people to develop correctly, to develop better, to develop happy, and to make. I am willing all my days to make their day-to-day easier, so they can code and they can be satisfying and I'm proud of we are working on and building. So there is a slide where you can see if you can know our open roles. We want to know more of Bitso also. Our people team is working on this part, and they will attend you really fast.
Well, Juan and Oren, thank you both so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today, and for putting together the PowerPoint, and just for sharing your collective expert knowledge with us. So we really appreciate that. I'd like to also remind our audience today that this session was recorded. You'll receive an email with a link to access the recording on demand. And you can also find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, and be sure to look in the on-demand section. So I do still have 4 $25 Amazon gift cards to give away. Our first winner is Kalpesh C. Our second winner is Victor N. Our third winner is Theo T. Our fourth and final winner is Naveen C. So to the 4 of you, please keep an eye on your inbox to claim your gift card. But if you don't find that email, just check your spam folder. I would like to extend our gratitude to Commodore for sponsoring today's webinar. And my final thanks goes to you, our audience. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We ask for just one extra moment for you to fill out a quick post-webinar survey that should pop up on your screen here in just a moment. But other than that, we hope to see you at a future TechStrong Learning webinar. Everyone have a great rest of your day. And Oren, Juan, thank you so much.
Thank you.